access transcripts of our videos, as well as galleries of the art we use in the videos by visiting academyofideas.com. Fyodor Dostoevsky is considered one of history's greatest novelists, but he is also one of history's greatest psychologists. His stories contain depictions of characters who span the spectrum of human personality, from those of abject evil to those saintly in nature. Friedrich Nietzsche was so impressed with the works of Dostoevsky that in a letter to a friend, he stated that Dostoevsky's novels contain the most valuable psychological material I know. In this video, we explore the life events that transformed Dostoevsky into a tortured genius and helped him attain his unmatched understanding of the human psyche. In the first months of 1849, Dostoevsky, then 27 years old, was considered a writer who had not lived up to his early potential. 3 years prior, he had published the book Poor Folk, which catapulted him to fame in the Russian literary scene. However, his subsequent works were panned by critics and largely ignored by the public. By 1849, many saw him as washed up. Dostoevsky's career, however, had hardly started. In the decades that followed, he would write some of history's greatest works of fiction, such as Crime and Punishment, The Brothers Karamazov, The Idiot, and Demons. What transformed Dostoevsky from a writer of mediocre success to one of the most famous authors of all time was a 5-year descent into a personal hell. Dostoevsky was arrested, placed in solitary confinement, forced to endure a mock execution, and imprisoned in Siberia for 4 years, where he lived in filth and squalor with criminals of the most depraved kind. This experience made Dostoevsky intimately familiar with both the darkest depths and the greatest heights of the human soul, providing him with ample material for his stories. The cause of Dostoevsky's 5 years of misfortune began with his decision to join the Petrashevsky Circle, a weekly social gathering named after its host. At these gatherings, participants discussed the social and political ideas shaping Russia and Europe. By 1848, the number of people attending the circle grew, and it morphed into a sort of debate club. Dostoevsky, a pathologically shy and socially awkward individual, spent more time listening to others debate than actively participating. Regarding his participation in the group, he stated, "I am far from being a loudmouth, and everybody who knows me will say the same. I do not like to speak noisily and lengthily, even with friends, of whom I have very few, and still more in society, where I have the reputation of being an uncommunicative, reserved, unsociable person." At the time Dostoevsky joined the Petrashevsky Circle, these gatherings were not illegal. However, in 1848, as revolutions broke out across Europe, Russia's ruling class became nervous, believing that European political and social ideas could incite unrest in Russia. The government began to clamp down on freedom of speech and adopted increasingly censorious policies. The Petrashevsky Circle was infiltrated by the secret police, and in April of 1849, members of the group were rounded up and arrested. Dostoevsky was taken from his home in the middle of the night and locked away in the Peter and Paul fortress, where he was held in solitary confinement for 6 months, awaiting his sentence. "When I found myself in the fortress, I thought that the end had come and that I would not last 3 days," he later told a friend in 1873. However, Dostoevsky quickly learned that he could adapt to the horrid conditions of a 19th-century maximum security prison. He discovered that, as humans, we possess untapped reservoirs of energy and an unrealized capacity for resilience. Most of us do not make use of these capacities unless fate forces our hand, but when it does, we discover that we can cope with challenges that far exceed what we previously believed possible. As Dostoevsky wrote in a letter from his prison cell, "A good disposition depends on myself alone. Man has infinite reserves of toughness and vitality. I really did not think there was so much, but now I know it from experience. In September 1849, the Commission of Inquiry into the Petrashevsky Circle completed its investigation. They concluded that the members of the circle were, in general, notable for a spirit of opposition to the government and a desire to alter the existing state of things. Dostoevsky and 14 others were brought to Semyonovsky Square in St. Petersburg, where their sentence was announced: death by firing squad, to be carried out immediately. After hearing these words, Dostoevsky believed he was minutes away from death. In a state of shock, he turned to another of the condemned men and said, "We shall be with Christ." But the man, an atheist, smiled at Dostoevsky, pointed to the ground and said, "A handful of dust."